Is it just me, or did knitting journals absolutely explode this year? We're going to explore 4 fabulous journals today. No two are exactly alike. For some of these journals, I will not be sharing every single page out of respect for the creator. I tried to be really mindful about what was already shared publicly on their social media platforms or in the listing. And of course, I'm adding my own thoughts along the way. Let's begin by introducing all of the journals. First, we have the 2025 Yarn Enthusiast Journal by Knit California. This one was gifted to me by Leslie. Thank you so much, but it was already on my list to purchase. It has a soft and flexible cover and beautiful art on the front. Here's a 20-gram mini skein for size reference. Next up is the My Year in Yarn by Summer Day Crochet. This one I ordered directly from the Summer Day Crochet website. It has a hard cloth cover, a stretchy band to keep it closed, and a ribbon to mark your place. Here's that same 20-gram mini for size reference. Next up is the Knitter's Almanac from Stitching Cabin. This one comes from the UK, but I was able to get it on Amazon here in the US. It has a smooth hardcover and is the largest of our 4 journals today. Here's a 20-gram mini for size reference. Our final journal is the Lina Knitter's Year. This company is out of Finland, but I was able to order it here in the US from the Woolly Thistle in New Hampshire. It has a hard faux leather cover, a stretchy band to keep it closed, and a ribbon to mark your place. Here's that same 20-gram mini for size reference. Now that we've previewed these 4 journals, let's dive deeper into each of them. Let's start with the Yarn Enthusiast Journal by Knit California. If you're somebody who's really into project planning, you're gonna love this journal. So there are 3 main parts of the journal: monthly project planning, individual project pages, and a general notes section. Let's start at the front. So as soon as you open it up, you get a really lovely Knit California journal page. All this paper, really nice and thick, bright white, gonna be super easy to write on. I love those Papermate pins. You're gonna be perfect with those. You have a spot to say who the journal belongs to, a couple of blank pages, and then a table of contents. I really appreciate this because I love on my own notebooks that are just blank to have a table of contents so I know what page to flip to. The next couple of pages here are more for yearly planning. So we've got a project list at a glance where you can put the name of your project, the starting point, and the finish point. I think this one is meant to, add to throughout the year as you're finishing projects, but of course you can use it any way that you would like. The next page is for yarn purchases and plans. I love this. I'm actually planning a yarn budget video, so this would be really handy to have. Then you know what projects you're gonna need to buy things for, which one you may be able to use stash for. I think that's really clever to include. There's a spot for goal setting for the year. I don't really know what this closet thing is. I know Leslie has put some videos on her Instagram, so definitely go check those out and you can get more details. This is really fun. You can create your own bingo card for the year, things you want to accomplish, things you want to check off, and then you can see how you accomplish them throughout the year. There's a 2-page spot to do your Make 9 plans and your Make 9 accomplishments. This originally came about on Instagram, where you would put 9 projects that you wanted to make for the year. At the end of the year, you post another grid post that has, again, 9 squares, and if you have marked them off. So now we're getting into our monthly planning. I really like how this is laid out, how you have on one side everything for the month, and then on the other side you can break it down week by week. This is very much how I like to plan my own projects, by making general goals before the month begins and then slowly kind of adding to my week-long list as I go. You can see there's a place to go ahead and put all the projects that you already have, a queue to add anything you want to make, a place to put your finished projects, and also a place to track your stash. Each month also has a knitwear tracker, so you can keep track not only of if you're wearing your knitted and crocheted items, but what you're wearing. I think this could be really helpful to see, what things you actually like to wear and maybe inform what you like to make. And then there's just a blank page for monthly notes and ideas. This continues on for February, March, April, and all throughout the year. The next part we're getting into is our project pages section. If you like bullet journals, this is going to really appeal to you. I went through and I counted 50 of these project pages. I think that is going to be plenty to get you through the year. So in each of the project pages, you have a spot to write out the name of the project, your start date, a place to record your finish date when you finish it. Then you can record your yarn, the size you're making, needles, pattern gauge and swatch gauge, loved that, finish object gauge, and any notes you want to add. If that's still not enough space for you for all of your project pages, there are 38 of these note pages, which again are bullet journal style. At the top, they have all of the months and the dates, so you can circle it and record when these notes were taken. This is going to be a really great space to go in deeper with project planning, and then you can go back to your project planning to make a nice and tidy page. Next, let's dive into my year in yarn. In these journals, you're gonna see a lot of similar pages, but they're all laid out in different ways. So my hope is that you can see all of these and figure out which journal is gonna work best for you. This journal has 4 distinct sections: monthly planning, lists and inventories, project logs, and notes pages. Let's start at the very front. So first up, we have a place for you to write your name. Then we have a really nice note from Mackenzie, who created this journal, and a table of contents. Let's start with our calendar section, which includes our monthly planning. First up, you have a year at a glance, where you can kind of mark your streak of which days you knit or crochet. Of course, you could use this many different ways. You could circle important dates, use a color coding system, obviously, whatever you want to do. There's some spaces to plan for your year. I like that this is broken down where you have 3 big goals: favorites, how I want to feel, things to inspire you, words to live by. I like that this has more to it than just the project planning, and I'm always a big proponent of having a limit of how many things you're aiming towards. If you have too much, it's just not gonna happen. Here's what your monthly planning looks like. Each month has these 2 pages. There's a lot going on here, so let's dive into this page first. First up, we have a calendar, so you can easily see the dates for each month. There's 3 spaces for you to write down important dates, another 3 spaces for you to write in your monthly goals, and just how you want to feel this month. On the second page, we have a to-do list, which could be for your projects or other things, a to-buy list. Again, I'm loving this reference to yarn budgeting. This adorable little graphic where you can color in how many projects that you finished, and then a habit tracker. This is pretty cool. Some of the ways I'm imagining you could use this is pretty broad. Like you could put knit and crochet, and then you could like color in which days you do which ones. You could put each project here and color in which days you do that. You could even break down a single project and, say how many rows you want to do for each day. I want to do 10 rows on this sweater and 5 rows on this something else, and color those in. I think this is really great to have. The rest of the months are going to follow right behind. You can see that the graphics change slightly for what you're going to color in for each month, but all in all, they're pretty much the same. At the end of this project planning section, we have a year in review. There's a lot of cute graphics where you can reflect on the year, maybe your favorite yarn color, your favorite yarn, your favorite project or pattern. You could put little tiny photographs here, draw it in, write it in, projects finished, 5-star projects, longest knit and crochet streak, and then of course 3 things that you learned for the year. Finally, there's a space for you to start planning for 2026. Go ahead and get your vision board going, what works in progress you want to finish, and how you want to feel in the new year. Moving on to our next section is lists and inventories. This section has so many spaces for you to track a multitude of things. This page is really cool. You can write your project name over here. You can then color in the percentage that you finished on it, and once you complete it, you color it in here on the other side. If you like to get a little more nitty-gritty into projects, that's what this project log section is all about. There are 49 of these project log pages. Each one is 2 pages long. So you can see this is intended to be a completed project log. So here's where you would write in your project name and the start date, but you might not put anything else on here, maybe in this notes section, until you actually finish it. You can also keep track of, pattern name, designer, needle or hook size made and materials, as well as details on the yarn and level of difficulty. You can then rate your project, how the project made you feel, and write in some notes about it. All of these project pages are the same, with the exception of the little cute drawing in the corner. Finally, we have a notes section. This is really great because you've got a lined page on one side and a dotted page on the other side. And this continues for 25 pages. So if you did want somewhere to put more notes about projects in progress, you could definitely do that here. Next, let's look at the Knitter's Almanac. This one is a little different in that it's not just intended for knitters and crocheters. In fact, Haley actually has a Stitcher's Almanac as well. She's an avid cross-stitcher and her page is really fun to follow. This journal has 3 main sections: monthly planning, broader planning, and notes. Let's start at the very beginning. We've got a table of contents here, a really nice introduction from Haley, and some definitions because this journal includes some terms I was not familiar with, such as Athenaeum, a library or reading room or an institution for the promotion of learning. And then we get into our monthly planning. Each month has a nice big 2-page spread of a calendar for you to plan out your projects amongst other things. Each month also has 2 dotted pages for you to fill out in any way you like. And remember, this is a little bit of a bigger notebook, so if you're someone who loves to bullet journal and have a lot of free creative space, you're gonna really like this. The months continue on just like the one in January with 4 pages for each month. Next up, we get into some broader planning. There are lots of great pages for these. So we start with our 2025 knitting goals. Again, 2 pages of dotted paper. Then the monthly goals are broken down into quarters, which I just love. I love working on a quarter system. So you can see for quarter 1, you've got January, February, and March all on 1 page. I think this is really handy to plan things out this way. Even though I really like to dig in before each month and make plans, I do kind of have a broader plan for the quarter, and I usually pick 1 big goal for each quarter to meet. Last year, that was my hand-knitted wardrobe. This year, I'm semi-planning to do 1 advent, like work through one of my stash advents every single quarter. You've got 9 lines for each month, which should be plenty of space and a little tick box to check it off. Then you have an annual tracker, which at first glance kind of looks like each month is the same, but no, this is actually set up to help you for each and every month with the exact number of days in each month. So you could use this in a lot of different ways. You could just make a goal for each month and then shade in the box. The box is also big enough that you could write in if you wanted to. If you like to use your creativity, this is going to be a perfect journal for you. Next, we have a year at a glance page that gives each month a nice big square with dotted paper for you to plan in. These 2 pages are called Progress Report, which almost like makes me feel like, oh no, I'm in trouble. But you're not in trouble. This is just to track your whips. And you've got a little percentage for each one, and you can check it off once it reaches an FO. There are 44 of these lines on this page, so that should get you through the year. This is the whip roll call, and there are actually 4 pages of this. My interpretation is this is where you would write down all of your current whips that you are working on. This could be really handy as a brainstorming page for the year to kind of just get everything listed out on paper. Then you could choose to prioritize which ones you want to work on and add them to your list where you're going to mark off the percentages. We have 2 full pages called New Starts Register, where you could write in projects that you want to start for the year. Again, very helpful in planning. Similarly, there is a page for accomplishments and finishes for each month, so you could actually write in what you accomplish. We then have 2 pages of wish list projects, which is, I think, a really fun place or a really fun way to kind of like call to attention things that you want to work on. You can write in the name of the designer, the name of the pattern, and any notes about it. And then I think this is really cute right here. It says you can check off if it got promoted to a whip. This page is interesting to me too. It's called Waiting in the Wings, and I feel like it's just projects that you maybe know you want to work on, but you don't have all the materials you need yet. Maybe you have the yarn, but you don't have the pattern. Maybe you have the pattern, but you don't have the yarn. So you can still write in those same details, the name of the pattern, the designer, and the notes, but then you need to check off if you've selected the pattern and if you selected the yarn. Next, we're getting into more of like a list, sort of a notes section. So we've got 2 pages here called Athenaeum. Again, I believe that is for you to write down your books, but you could also put, any kind of notes here. Then we have a ledger, which could be used to track yarn expenses. Again, I'm planning that yarn budget video, so I'm really excited to see this. And finally, we have a true notes page, dotted paper, and there are 20 pages of this. At the very end, you can get started planning for 2026. You could use this early on if any of your 2025 ideas spill over and need to be accomplished in the next year. Finally, we have our Lina Knitter's Year. This one is much more calendar than project planner, but I do believe you could use it to project plan if you wish. There are two main sections to this journal. First up is weekly and daily planning. This takes up the bulk of the journal. At the end of the journal, there are some helpful lists, places to jot in notes, and handy resources. Okay, let's get into it. You've got a spot to write your name and any identifying information you want in case this gets lost. You've got a year at a glance page here with all of the Sundays highlighted in red. This could be handy for yearly planning. I don't know why this stresses me out a little bit, just the way this is written. I think it's just something unfamiliar than what I'm used to. Something that I do like though is that each of the Mondays are listed with what week it is of the year. If you were really trying to plan things out, whether it be projects or work or anything in general, this could be really helpful and to look at everything broadly. Now let's take a look at the weekly pages. Again, this is the bulk of this journal. It is mostly a planner in this traditional sense of a calendar for you. But I really like how this page is laid out, and I think it could be really handy for project planning. In most of the weeks, you're gonna have this blank section here where you can jot any notes or any planning that you wanna do. And I say most weeks because a handful of them do have an advertisement here. Sometimes it's an advertisement for a yarn or a yarn store, and sometimes it's sharing with you an event that's happening. Speaking of events, the coolest thing about this journal is that they have all these different yarn-related events from around the world put already into your calendar. If I flip here to the end of April, beginning of May, I'm seeing Maryland Sheep and Wool, which I did already know about. There's also the Fiber Frolic in Australia, I didn't know about that, and the Birchwood Fiber Festival in Tennessee. So without having to even write anything in, you've already got tons of events on your calendar. Now each day is broken down into hour segments, typically from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. If you're planning to use this journal as a combo between like a life or work planner and a knitting journal, I think this is going to be really helpful for you. If you're looking to use it as a knitting journal only, I have a couple of suggestions. First, you could use it just like a calendar and sort of plan out your knitting projects or crochet projects for the day. So if you have a specific goal you're trying to accomplish, you could quite literally write it into when you want to work on it. So I'm the kind of person who likes to work on one project in the morning for 30 minutes. So I might write in each day which project that is going to be. Then I usually get to do a little bit of knitting during my lunch break, so I'd probably write that in too. And then finally in the evening, I have a lot more free time to work on my knitting projects, so I would probably write those in here in the evening. A completely different way to look at this, which is not the way this journal is intended to be used, but obviously you can do whatever you want, it's your journal. You could just ignore these days at the top and instead write in your projects here. Then below you could break down what you want to do each day in those projects and kind of write things out like 10 rows here, 15 rows here, do the toe, however you like to break down your projects. Those pages continue all the way until the last part of our notebook. So the second section here is going to have lots of different lists and things for you to use. So we've got a year at a glance for 2026. Then we have a list of URLs for all the events that were included in this journal. There's a handy page of common terms for knitting, a needle size conversion table, as well as a yarn weight table. There's even a ruler in here with centimeters and inches. Now there's a couple of pages for planning some yarny stuff. We've got one page for finished objects and another page for a cast-on wish list. You may not find these to be enough to plan out your entire year. This may get you started. So there are a bunch of blank notebook pages at the end. I counted 10 total line pages and about 22 blank pages. That concludes our journal tour. I hope you were able to find a journal that is going to suit your needs. These, of course, are not the only journals that exist out there, so if there are any that you love to track your projects with, if you will share them down below, that would be really awesome. I'm still not sure which of these journals I will be using to plan my projects for this year, but I am going to be doing some 2025 project planning coming up really soon. If you like planning your projects, you may enjoy this playlist where I share all my project planning videos as well as pattern collections. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!